Hi, Theresa Beneteau here. I'm going to talk to you today about plumbing 101. This is basic. I'm not a plumber. I highly recommend you get a professional to come in, check your plumbing, whether it's an inspector, a licensed plumber. So I just want to make sure that there's that disclosure to begin with. However, being that you're a new investor or a seasoned investor, and maybe this is just a refresher for you, is that you're going to want to make sure that the plumbing is up to par. You're going to want to know when you're getting into a property, whether usually it's good when you're doing it on the purchase, is that when you're going to actually walk through the property, these are some of the visual things that you might be able to see. Some things you might not. However, there are some things in here that you can actually check out. Leaky pipes. So when you're walking into the basement, you might even see drips on there. You might see any pipes that are exposed that all of a sudden there's water coming out of them, or they another good sign is pails. If you ever see pails under pipes, or if you have a pail under a pipe and the pail is dry, it means that there was a leak, is a leak, could be a leak. It's a finicky leak. Maybe it's only when they flush the toilet, maybe only when they take a shower. So you want to be mindful of that. Corroded, rusted pipes might be a little bit challenging to see that. However, when you're looking and you can see any kind of exposed pipes, then you can visually see it. You might even see that galvanized piping is another one that's a very, very old style of pipe. And you can see that it's galvanized from just looking at it. That's something that you could Google to maybe get pictures of to get a clear understanding of that. Low water pressure, that's something you can check. So when you go to a property and you're going to look, is turn the water on in the bathroom sink and then flush the toilet at the same time. That's one of the opportunities that you can now see where if there's low water pressure, that means the chances are that there's corroded or rusted pipes. Another one, clogged slow drains. So what you want to do is maybe go in the kitchen, put the stopper in there, fill the sink up full, pull the stopper out, see how slow the drain. Do the same thing in any of the bathrooms. This could indicate that there's rusted pipes. This could indicate in regards to the slow draining, it could be just a simple clog underneath there in the P trap. However, it's just you want to be mindful, and as you're going through this and you can find a lot of defects with the property, these are things that can help you negotiate a lower price as well with the seller. Water heater issues. So you want to be able to maybe turn on the tap and see how long does it take to actually get hot water. So that would be the other thing. You want to look around the hot water heater. These tend to explode. I say explode. All the bottoms tend to rust out, and literally you could come home one day and it has just decided to let loose, and all of a sudden the water's all over the place and the water's still running. So had this happen a couple times. So you might want to keep an eye on that, especially when you're going to look at a property. You want to know if that's something that's going to have to be taken care of right away. There's some marketplaces that you can rent the water heater, and then there's other marketplaces that they're only owner owned. So you want to find out again when you're purchasing the property who owns it, or if it's a rental. Sewer line. This is interesting. I actually purchased a property that didn't even have a sewer line hooked up. And yes, my bad. I opted to buy the property. I went to go look at it, and I assumed because there was a bathroom that there was a sewer line. And I opted to not get any inspector on it because it seemed very straightforward. There was no basement. I thought it was just going to be nice and sealed up. However, what ended up happening, because the sewer line wasn't hooked up from the house all the way to the street, it cost us an extra $5,000. So not something that I would recommend to anyone. So sewer line, you want to make sure that that's actually functioning. Check the seller's bills, make sure that there's actually a sewer bill on there. You want to find out, is that, do they have a septic tank, a holding tank, or is it a city sewer? So a seller can identify that with you. A realtor would have that in a listing. You can also call the county or the city, the town, and ask them for that information. So there's other things that you can do versus doing it basically the hard way and not realizing it until after the closing date. An obvious one, running toilets. I mean, if you walk into a unit and the toilet is running and running and running, you know already that that's something that you're going to need to do the moment you get the keys. You know that that is going to, that's like money down the drain. So you're definitely going to want to be mindful of that right away. Outdated plumbing. So again, when you're looking around, you may be able to see where is it copper piping? Is it galvanized piping? Is it PVC piping, plastic piping? So you're going to want to be mindful of that. Again, just looking, you can do a little bit of Google research to find out the difference. You want to know enough so that when you're following the inspector around, that you're asking him more questions. So as you're doing walkthroughs, as you're doing inspections, asking the inspector these questions, or if you're getting a plumber to go out to the property, asking them those questions as well is really, really important. Water stains. I mean, look in the ceilings, look in the bathrooms, look up if anything between, we'll say the roof, if it's a 2-story, looking at the ceilings, looking at the corners. If you see water stains, it could be a leaking roof. Sometimes if there's a pipe there, there's a pipe that may have burst inside the wall and someone just decided not to fix it. If you see mold is a key indicator there's water somewhere, and water is plumbing, right? So any mold that you see in a bathroom, you know that there's a water issue, whether it's the tenants that are showering. I've had tenants not even put the shower curtain on the inside of the tub, they had it on the outside. So when they would take a shower, literally the water was going down. So it wasn't a plumbing problem as much as a tenant problem. However, it became my problem because I had to fix everything. If I was going to buy that property, I had to be very mindful that that was a repair that I was going to have to do sooner than later. Sump pump, that's clearly just getting water out of underneath the ground and being able to pump that out down to the road. So not every property has those. And again, if you have a basement, good idea to have a sump pump, that way that there's no water coming into your basement. There's actually a way that it's going to be able to siphon it out and get it outside. Obvious one, leaky taps. I mean, if you have any leaky taps, you're walking through the unit, you see the leaky taps, I recommend just replace the taps. Sometimes it's just easier than, yes, can you rebuild them? And yes, you can do all that. Eliminate the headaches. And especially if you're going to be getting a property manager, even worse, if you're going to be self-managing, you're going to be always worrying about costs. And because, I mean, if you're self-managing, you're trying to save the bottom dollar. So I would say put more money into the preventative maintenance. You know, don't skimp on getting new toilets if there's any challenges like that. So yeah, I hope you found this video informative, and we'll see you on the next video.